BC says it plans to run its own anti-tariff ads online, also aimed at Americans starting next month. So joining us now to share his thoughts is John Reis, professor at the UBC Sauder School of Business's Strategy and Business Economics Division. John, hi there. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, Gloria. Thanks for having me.
Well, the ad from Ontario certainly garnered a whole lot of attention, some controversy, some nasty comments from those on high in Washington, D.C. What do you think of BC's plans now to run our own ads?
Yeah, I was quite surprised when I saw that was the plan. I applaud the principle of standing up for what's right and educating the public about the truth about tariffs. But politically, it seems highly risky. This situation is very aggravated at the moment, and this, might not help the long run negotiations between the two federal governments.
Yeah, okay. Well, tell me more about that. What do you see as the risks here?
Well, we've been observing that Trump has been making deals with other countries, the EU. Now he's in Asia, Japan, Korea, and China. And it seems like the game is to give him a win somehow, give him something he can say, I negotiated tough. I got a good deal for America, but ultimately, the tariffs will come down within these negotiations reasonably with other countries. Canada's not in a terrible position because a lot of our goods, like 90% of them, our exports, are covered under the Canada-US-Mexico Free Trade Agreement. But there's still high tariffs on about 10% of the goods, including softwood lumber coming out of BC into the US.
Well, and what do you think of BC's focus, specifically on the forest industry?
Yeah, that's our one of our biggest. I guess that is our single biggest product. One might keep in mind is there's been about 50 years of trade frictions with softwood lumber, and what's being applied to mainly being applied to BC lumber are countervailing duties having to do with alleged subsidies by Canada and anti-dumping duties, which pertain to uh, Canadian exporters selling in the U.S. at a lower price than what they charge in BC. So that gets negotiated, and there's a process and it's not supposed to be political. It's supposed to be objective how they do these calculations, and the Canadian government is working on trying to get to change a recent dramatic increase in those anti-dumping duties and countervailing duties.
Yeah, but do you think Americans understand the impact that tariffs have on construction costs? I mean, costs overall, but when we're talking about, BC lumber and, adding $20,000 to the price of new home construction, do you think they get it?
Um, yeah, it's so indirect. I'd probably be skeptical that they get it, and certainly trade economists, many people have been saying for over a year that tariffs are going to be felt by consumers, and to some extent they have been. And obviously, the last U.S. election, a big issue was increasing prices. So obviously U.S. consumers care about prices, but do they connect it to tariffs? I'm not sure that they do. I should say that I did like the Ontario ad. I think it was great to see a head of state acting presidential and being reasonable and calm and articulate. And so I think that might have changed a few minds, but will it change U.S. trade policy? I doubt it.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying when we hear from Doug Ford, just in terms of potentially a billion eyeballs on the ad from Ontario. What impact do you think that could have on American voters? I mean, eventually, I mean, it was out there for more than a week before we heard from President Trump. But what about the impact?
Well, again, it would have to be through voting and political pressure. And the midterm elections are still a long ways away. So maybe the timing could have been better when people were actually about to vote for new leadership.
Well, one thing is Canada's relationship with the United States, right? Another thing is the federal government's relationship with the provinces. The Prime Minister's office has officially said no, there will be no further comment on Ontario's ad, including whether the Prime Minister actually saw the ad in advance. I mean, what balance do you think Mark Carney is trying to strike right now?
Well, obviously there is a delicate balance, and I guess it's not unreasonable as a strategy for the premiers to be very aggressive and kind of be the bad cops that will do things that Donald Trump doesn't like, and the federal government can be the more the good cop and be reasonable and say, look, I'll try and rein in these premiers if you work with me to come to a quick negotiated deal on tariffs.
Well,
So I don't
again,
know.
you point out this the good cop, bad cop, where Doug Ford could have been the bad cop, and Mark Carney gets to keep smiling across the table to Donald Trump at a dinner in South Korea. But I mean, for a prime minister the slogan was elbows up, that was a big part of the election campaign. What's your assessment of where he's at right now and the way he is approaching the talks and the relationship with the U.S.?
Well, I think what we've seen is, having elbows down, and as I said, having being patient and negotiating has led to some of these tariffs coming down worldwide. And perhaps Mark Carney has seen that and realized that this is the path, the best path to success, and maybe was on that path. That he's been thrown off, at least temporarily, but hopefully he'll get there sooner or later.
Well, sooner or later. What do you think is the path that Canada should be pursuing right now?
Well, I think probably, I guess I would suggest quiet negotiations. I'm not sure if what these premiers doing is that harmful in the long run, and they're sort of making the point that Canada cares and is not toothless. In but yeah, I think the past success, as I said, is negotiate with Donald Trump, give him something that he can say is a win for the American consumers, and it could be things that are a little bit problematic from Canada's point of view, in general, like support restrictions on imports of dairy products and things like that. So give Donald Trump a win, and get back to a free trade regime.
Well, and as Mark Carney says, control what we can control. John Reis, thanks for your time today.
Okay, my pleasure.
John Reis is a professor in the UBC Sauder School of Business's Strategy and Business Economics Division.